everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for Roadmap to Prosperity, leveraging your traveler income in real estate. We're super excited for Tyrin to join us today. For those of you all who may not be familiar, I'm Britt. I'm the community manager here at Trusted. I've been a nurse for 10 years, traveled for almost 5. But Trusted Health is a healthcare staffing platform that places allied and travel nurses in all 50 states. But besides that, we also have a wealth of resources from our great community where we host events like these, as well as our blog resources and career guides and just a ton of other wealth of resources that we're just trying to really make sure that you are supported all throughout your journey as a healthcare professional. So make sure you check us out, sign up with us to see our matches and to hopefully travel one day soon. But without further ado, I will hand it over to Ty.
Registered investment advisory firm where I work with healthcare professionals to help them create the financial infrastructure to then be prepared to securely invest in real estate. So I've been a nurse since 2018, and then after about COVID, um, I started off in the ER, transitioned to ICU during COVID, traveled for 4 years, and then kind of settled down as I, got into my business in real estate, and then started to invest in real estate in 2021. I became a licensed financial advisor in 2022 after the fact because of everything I was going through after purchasing my properties. I unfortunately purchased. Well, I fortunately was able to purchase 2 rental properties at one time. I was very just eager to get into the game and not really aware of the risks that I was facing, and really just kind of jumped into the water, not knowing how deep it was, and belly flopped face first. So I went through a lot of financial trials and tribulations in dealing with the different phases of what it means to own a rental property. So I decided that, one, real estate is a great way to build wealth. I want to help people build wealth through real estate, but it's also important to be financially prepared for what you're going to get to as a real estate investor, because now you have not only the responsibility of yourself, but the responsibility of a place where somebody's living in. So I don't know if you guys have your own primary residences, but now having 2, 3 mortgages to deal with it, you really have to start looking at real estate as a business. And with all businesses, there's planning for it. There is knowing your numbers, and there is really having a strategy at the end of the day. So getting into real estate, we can go to the next slide. So I want to start off by saying that disruption follows intention, and the fear of starting is typically people's biggest obstacle to overcome. But if you set the expectation that it is going to be hard in the beginning, and that if you just focus on the process versus the outcome, what I like to say, being devoted to the process without being emotionally attached to the results at the end of the day, you will at some point get to the level that you're trying to reach as long as you stay consistent. So really, a lot of times I feel like the thing that prevents people from even taking certain risk is their limiting beliefs and their self-doubt. And if we can go to the next slide, I just want to give you guys some limiting beliefs that I want you guys to write down now and take down now. Because these are a lot of the beliefs when it comes to investing in real estate that people look at. So not having a time constraint, understanding the financial risks that come along with it, people not wanting to lose the money that they invested in it, or feel like it's going to be a big financial responsibility, lack of expertise, or not having the experience. So being as though if it's your first time getting into real estate, you don't know uh, an apple from an orange. So really going through that stage of not knowing is always scary for people. Also understanding regulatory compliances, whatever regulations that are in your city for zoning, and a lot of things that people don't think about. Managing tenants is another limiting belief that prevent people from starting, because we have all heard the horror stories. We've all heard the negative things that people say, and that can really kind of scare us. Understanding property maintenance that then follows up behind tenant management. What if they destroy my house, or what if things break and I have to fix them? Then understanding not being able to have somebody to pay the rent. So that's called the vacancy risk, and your property being vacant, you ultimately having to take on the financial responsibility. Understanding your geographic constraints. People that's living on the West Coast, living in these high metropolitan areas, the cost is high. So feeling limited and not knowing where else to invest or how to invest out of state can also be a constraint as well. I mean, a limiting belief as well. Understanding the capital required to even have a down payment and the money to close on a property. A lot of people think that investing in real estate, you need hundreds of thousands of dollars and you need a lot of money. So that will then deter people from even just doing the research to get started. The legal liabilities that come along with it are something that people think about as far as getting sued if somebody gets hurt in the house or injured. Understanding market viability, market volatility, as we see now, the housing market is up and crazy in the air. You don't really know when it's going to come back down or when it's going to change. So people are waiting for the perfect time to get in, which will never come and can also be a limiting belief. And then the last few, the opportunity cost, your personal preferences, and which investment option you want to take or which strategy, and then the stress, the burnout, and the long-term commitment that comes with just thinking about owning a property. These are all limiting beliefs that will really stop somebody from getting in and just stopping people from actually taking that first step. So now in this presentation, I just want to go over um, these four key points that I want you guys to be able to walk away with. So understanding the financial hierarchy when it comes to building wealth, establishing your financial foundation, understanding the financial infrastructure, the actual structure of your money that's coming in, and understanding of everything in your life that has to do with the number and how you're going to build off of that. Understanding the phases of real estate investing. There are four phases that go into real estate investing, and people just think once you buy the property, that's it. But it doesn't just stop at the closing table. And then understanding how to create your financial roadmap that's going to get you to the place that you want to be, whether that's in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or during retirement. So next, the financial hierarchy is we have your wealth foundation, which is pretty much your sorry guys, picture's not that big. But understanding your wealth accumulation, which is understanding the foundation of your will, your emergency fund, also having life insurance, and having the foundation that you kind of build your wealth on, which then goes to the accumulation stage of your savings, your investments. Then we get to the preservation phase, which is other insurances to really protect you from any financial risk, and like umbrella liability insurance that can really cover you from, once you really start to build wealth, the risk of somebody trying to take it. And then we get to the distribution phase, is when we are in our later years of life and we're actually, the money that we've accumulated over time, it's time to start taking that out, and then living off of that, but also having some left over to, so that we can then transfer it over to our next generation. And that's what we call like legacy planning, and passing on our legacy to our children. Now, understanding the financial life cycles, right? We start off as young adults in our teenage years. That's between ages 13 and 17. That's where you have your initial financial awareness, like, okay, I need to get a job. You start thinking about what you want to be as an adult and which career path you kind of resonate with and move towards, and understanding like, hey, I'm going to need a job in order to pay bills. We have the young adult stage, which is 18 to 25, where you start to gain and maintain financial independence. And that's where the start of the wealth accumulation is. So people get out of high school, get their first job, or after college and get our first professional job. That's where we start to then building up and starting the actual accumulation of our wealth. Next, it's the next phase of starting a family between ages 26 to 45. This wealth accumulation then kind of transitions over to preservation, focusing on not just working, but now working for your family and having a family that's going to require you some time, and you can't work as much in order to spend time with your family and be there. So then we go to and then within that starting a family phase, or we call middle adulthood. That's where you're focusing on growing your investments. That's where you're focusing on investing in certain things, purchasing your insurances, so that you have something in case anything happens. There's something that can get passed on to your kids. We get into the retirement planning for retirement phase. This is kind of the end of your career. You're knowing like, hey, I'm about to be retire soon. I got to start getting my affairs in order because I won't be working, and that's really where people they wait too late. And then once it gets to that phase, if you're not prepared at that point, then it's kind of a gloomy retirement phase, which is 65 years and plus. And that's the wealth distribution from your retirement accounts that you've been saving, from your real estate properties that you may have been investing in. This is where you actually get to start to live off of everything you've accumulated throughout your career. And this, like I said, ranges from ages 13, 13, I really want to say 16 to 17, up until 65 plus until you die. So now with the establishing the foundation, so understanding each phase of the financial life cycle. You have your accumulation phase. This is where you start to build your foundation, saving, planning for having a family, planning for buying your first house, planning for the life that you really want for yourself, which moves us into the preservation phase where, okay, we've accumulated all this money between 18 and 45 if done right. Now we don't want to lose the money. So now we have to preserve it and start to invest in secure assets and really reevaluating how we're investing our money, what our asset allocation is, and also what our risk tolerance is. Because between ages 46 and 45, 59, our risk is going to be way different between ages 18 and 45 because we have less time to make up from any type of losses that we may take. And then that's when we get into our distribution phase, which we call estate planning and end of life planning. So estate planning is, okay, with this money that I've accumulated, now I know how much money I'm taking out each month to live off of. And then when it comes to planning, okay, how, what am I going to hand off to my children? Who's going to get what of my assets that I have? Who's going to get how much of the money that I accumulated? So some people don't have any children later on in their life, and if the money isn't like if a will isn't established and there isn't any end of life planning, it just ends up getting taken over by essentially the government, and it gets put in. I'm not a retirement or estate planner. I forgot what the account is called, but essentially you end up leaving your money over to the government because you can't take it with you. So this is why it is important that we start to build and create the financial infrastructure that we are going to build this wealth building on top of. Now, one thing I like to ask people is you never really want to build your foundation on you never really want to build a house on a poor foundation, right? So when it comes to that infrastructure, understanding the foundation of your finances. So we have the protection. What we look at as far as protection, and that's for any worst case scenarios, or like in the hospital we call them never events, but that's death, disability, and sickness. Now I have a question for you guys in regards to, do you know, or what do you guys think your biggest asset is when it comes to your finances? What's your biggest investment? If you guys can drop something in the chat on what you think that might be. Okay, we got health. Anybody else might have an idea of it? Your home. Okay. What is your biggest asset? Your house. Okay. All right, we're gonna give it one more. One more, and then we got somebody else in here that'll answer. What's your biggest asset that you have that's at risk? I'm gonna give y'all the answer. So your biggest asset, your stocks, I hope. No, your biggest asset is your ability to earn income. You are your biggest asset, and you working to between ages 18 and 59 and a half, that money and that earning potential throughout your life that you use to make, we have to protect that. All right. And then we get optimization of the money. So now this goes into actually the financial efficient effectiveness of using your money. Now, this is focusing on debt management. You know that whatever debt that you have, you're paying for. So it doesn't really matter how much money you got coming in because you always have money going out that you're paying to that you either already used, whether it's getting your education, whether it's getting a car, buying a house, but you're going to be paying on this debt over a long period of time. And the more that you're paying on it, the more it's going to cost you. So really focusing on that and getting on a debt, some type of debt payment plan, working with whether it's a financial coach or a financial advisor to understand your debt and structuring it so that it can get paid off. And then one thing I always say is Uncle Sam is going to get his money at the end of the day. So it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. And Uncle Sam is going to take whatever you make and take away from whatever you're trying to keep. So being able to tax plan, knowing what your efficient tax rate is at the beginning of the year, knowing how much you should put away to the side for taxes at the beginning of each year. And you can really do this by working with a CPA and tax planning. Now we get to the growth part of our financial infrastructure, which is increasing our income, maximizing our savings, and strategically investing our money. Now, when it comes to investing our money, at the end of the day, the whole point of an investment is to stay ahead of inflation and get a percentage of return on your initial investment. So if we want to continually every year on end, get the standard of 6, 7, 8% on our money, because right now we're in a period of inflation where we're at 7%. So if you're depending on a 3% annual increase at your job, that raise that you're getting does not mean anything because you're still behind inflation. And if our money isn't making money, we're losing money at the end of the day. So now, understanding the protection phase, financial protection. The most important pieces of our financial protection foundation are having an established emergency fund. So if you're single, that's 3 to 6 months of your expenses. And if you're married with children, that's having 9 to 12 months so that if you were to ever lose your job, if you were to ever get sick, if you were to ever get hurt, you have a nest egg and a safety net that is going to be able to hold you over for a certain period of time so that you're not losing it all, that you're not going into more debt. And it's really preparing for those rainy days that we never expect to come. Also, having life insurance. Life insurance is critically important because you want to ask yourself, how much is your life worth at the end of the day? And we all come in this world owing no one, but a lot of people leave this world owing a lot of money, owing people, and leaving with a negative balance. So this is a very simple preventative measure that you can take. I myself have about $1.5 million in life insurance, and I'm only paying 65 bucks. And that is way better than not having any life insurance, saving this $65, or not paying any type of premium, and then your family having to post a GoFundMe, ask your friends, family for money so that we can pay for your end of life expenses because it costs to bury you, it costs to die, whatever, hospital wise. There are going to be bills left over at the end of the day. And a lot of us or a lot of families aren't able to take steps forward or recover after the loss of a primary income winner because there is no protection of that person's income at the end of the day. So I always recommend 7 to 10 times your income if you're single. If you're married, minimum 20 times your income so that your family, we like to look at it as if I die, I have $1 million policy, my family will get that check, be able to put that into just a standard index fund, and uh, they'll be able to take a percentage of that money that it's earning every year and live off of that for at least 30 years. Making sure all my debts are paid off, making sure my real estate properties are paid off, making sure my daughter's college fund is secured. So really being able to leave your family in a better position than they were in when you were here, because we got to take into account, like you said, that earned income and that earning potential that we had. Once that's gone, then you're leaving them in a far worse position. So understanding the types of insurance. Now, I have my insurance license, but I don't specialize in insurance. But when you're looking at the types of insurance, people might throw out the IULs. They might throw out a lot of things that really don't matter. You want to focus on term life insurance or permanent insurance. Term is basically you renting life insurance for 30 years. You're getting locked in at a rate. It's best to do it when you're younger because you're healthier and you can get a low premium that you have to pay, or you can get permanent lock into that premium for the rest of your life. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but at the end of the day, when you're 65 years of age, you're not paying an arm and a leg for life insurance. And then getting to the disability insurance, a lot of things we don't think about is tomorrow isn't promised in the sense of our functionality, right? You may get into a car accident, you may get sick, you something may happen at work to where as though you can no longer work to your maximum potential. And if you can't work as a nurse, if you can't work as a travel nurse, where is your income going to come in at? Now, some employers pay up to 60% of your income, but if we're barely getting by on 100% of our income when we're earning this, 60% is still going to put us in the red. So making sure we have full coverage disability to kind of cover that gap in between what our employer will pay us for not being able to work, and then having some extra protection. Now, there are different types of disability insurances, like stock owned disability insurance or mutual owned. Now, that's just kind of looking at it versus you buying into a business, you buying a stock, and it's way more accessible to a lot of people. But when it comes to the processes and procedures that you have to go through when you actually have to use the policy, it's much more strenuous versus the mutual own, which is really mutually beneficial because you and all the other policyholders are investing your money into this certain fund that they will be able to then use when you are disabled. And last is health insurance. It's something that we often overlook, but one of the biggest risks to our income, or one of the biggest risks to our savings, and would put a lot of people in debt, are health insurance. I mean, are sorry, um, bills, unexpected medical bills. So you go to the hospital, you thinking you're healthy, but you need your pancreas removed, or you need some type of surgery. That surgery is going to cost. We often don't get to see the side of what the medical bills of us paying of taking care of people, but it costs an arm and a leg, literally. And a lot of people come in without insurance, so they aren't able to, whether it's get any the medical help after the fact, and then it becomes a constant cycle of putting a band-aid on it, ripping it off. So making sure there are different types of insurance, where though some travel agencies provide insurance for you where you have the deductible is going to be a little high, or you can pay for individual insurance outside of your employer. And that's high on the premium side, which you're going to pay a month, but the deductibles are lower, and you have much more flexibility in regards of where you want to go and where you want to be seen for, certain health cases. Now the optimization phase. So optimizing our money. We got our money coming in. Now how do we make it work as best as possible? So net worth tracking, understanding your assets versus your liabilities. Now a lot of us don't have many assets, right? People say buy your first house, but if you're an asset is something that is generating you money, something that you invest in that will then make you money. And a lot of us have liabilities, whereas though it's costing us money. Our cars, if you're not using your house to rent out, your house is essentially a liability as well. And then a lot of these credit cards that we use, a lot of these materialistic items that we buy are all liabilities because it costs us to have them and it doesn't pay us. So understanding what your actual net worth is, and honestly, if you really look at it, if you really look at your net worth, a lot of us are in the negative, and we see these millionaires and think that the net worth means something as well. But if you're in the negative because you don't have any assets, you really don't have a net worth yourself. So the way we start to focus on how do we increase our net worth, we start to focus on income and expense tracking. So understanding the money that's coming in, the money that you're working for, and then the money that's going out that you're spending to literally pay for your living. Now, those basic expenses that we have, which are like we have discretionary expenses, and then we also have pretty much our maintenance expenses that we have come out every month. So now your mortgage payment doesn't really change, your car note doesn't really change, your BG&E, all of these bills that we have that are consistent, coming out the same dollar amount. We should know what day they're coming out and how much they're going to be, so that we can really structure our the payments that we make, so that one, we aren't missing a payment, and then that we can automate our bills and our expenses by knowing how much we have coming in every month. Now, being a travel nurse, we get paid on a weekly basis. We work the same standard 36 hours. You know it because it's on your contract how much you're going to be taking home every week. Now, understanding how much you're going to be taking home every Friday and making a total amount at the end of the month, that's what your income is. Now we got to start deducting those expenses from it every month. And once we have our set standard expenses that don't change taken out, we're left over with our extra cash flow. Now, a lot of our extra cash flow gets eaten up because we're going to Starbucks every day. We're going to Target. We're buying things we don't need. We're taking these vacations. We're buying these different items, and that's eating away into your additional income that you could be then saving or investing into something. So, being able to track your income and expenses really will allow you to know which areas you can modify. Like, okay, I'm getting rid of Netflix. I'm not going out to Starbucks for every day. I'm going to start making my own coffee. And it allows us to make certain adjustments within our financial habits so that we can start to increase our savings rate. Now, when it comes to your savings rate, your savings and investing should be 20%. Your essential expenses, which are those expenses that don't change, should be about 60% of your income. And then your discretionary expenses, which are those expenses in buying, going out, having fun, entertainment, clothing items, and just being able to have fun, that should be only about another 20% of your income as well. So now that gets us into debt management, understanding what our total debt is and understanding what we know is owe as far as our car loan, what we owe as far as our actual mortgage and principal balance, what we owe in student loans, anything that is a debt, you should know how much you owe on it and what the interest rate is. And then we can start to structure our debt to focus on what we're going to pay off first. So there's like an avalanche method, there's a snowball method, and really being able to sit down, figure out what needs to get paid first, because which is costing me the most, and what can I get paid off the soonest. And then lastly, as I said, Uncle Sam's always going to get his money at the end of the day. So if we can understand how to really structure if you have a business, that's why I always say invest in real estate, because of the tax benefits that come along with it. Us being employees, just being a regular employee, you have no other tax benefits that you can use besides if you have a life insurance policy or health insurance policy and those type of deductibles. But tax planning is so important, especially once you start to get later on in life, because you want to be able to distribute or take away the money that you've accumulated by spending as least amount on taxes as possible so that you can keep majority of your money. Moving into the growth phase, the financial growth part of our foundation. So we have our short-term, mid-term, long-term, and retirement goals. With our short-term goals, that is uh, from 0 to 2 years. What are you trying to save for in the next 2 years? That focuses on our cash accounts and what's in our checking account. Also, what's in our savings account, how much we're saving, and then how much you have as an emergency fund. Now, understand your emergency fund and your savings account are two different things. So I always tell people that focus on your emergency fund first, because that is, if all hell breaks loose and you lose it all, you have something to fall back on. But then once you've hit that emergency fund limit that you've set for yourself as far as how much you need from 3 to 6 months or 9 to 12, then you can move on to just saving for unexpected expenses. The midterm goals are greater than 2 years, so between 2 and 9 years, and that's what we're focusing on being able to then invest into things like the stock market. So investing in mutual funds, index funds, ETFs, money market accounts, whereas though we are able to see pretty much our liquidity and our capital, what's available. And that's the money that I try to tell people to, once you know what your income and your expenses are, that extra money that we're trying to save after our bills are paid, that's where this money then goes to after our emergency fund is taken care of. And then we have long-term financial goals that are focusing on life insurance and alternative investments like real estate. Because yes, well, one of the benefits I like about real estate versus like the stock market versus the stock market is real estate has really three primary benefits: tax benefits, wealth building benefits, so from appreciation, and then the active income from the cash flow that you can make from your rental income. So one, you're going to be earning from it now. You'll be saving from it later, and then you'll also be able to truly build wealth, because let's say over a 30-year timeline, once your properties are paid off by your tenants, you now have a property that you're just paying taxes for, but you can sell that property and liquidate and take however much the actual value of it is, or you can refinance it, pull the money out, and still having people pay for it so that you can then pass it on to your children. And then in the our retirement financial goals, that's what we're saving in our retirement accounts, whether it's with our job, whether we have a Roth IRA, or later on in life we have annuity options that you have that really can provide you guaranteed income in those years after you no longer working anymore. Now, I want to start off before we get into the actual real estate understanding. That was building the financial foundation. That was what I did. That was what I did before I actually got into real estate, so that when I got into real estate, whatever risk that I was taking on, it wasn't then going to affect my personal finances. So that's the first layer. That's the first layer of the foundation that we're building. And then that's when it's time to get into other investments and creating assets through real estate. So I want to let you guys know, if I can do it, so can you. I started off with zero real estate experience. I started off with no guidance, really no support, no network, and I had $0 saved when I started my journey. And I meant $0 saved for a real estate property, not $0 saved in my savings or my emergency fund. But when it came to putting towards real estate, I started from scratch. So if I can do it, guys, you can definitely do it. But it's about really trusting the process, really committing yourself to it, and understanding that it's not just a get rich quick. It's not a short term thing. This is a long term play. This is really a lifestyle change that you're now going to have to get into when you become a real estate investor. So between 2021 and now, this is my real estate portfolio. I have one single family property that I have. I have a duplex, which is the Decker Avenue property, which is a multifamily unit. It's a duplex, but it also has an accessory dwelling unit. I was also able to invest in a joint venture with a friend of mine where we purchased the property and pretty much flipped the property and got a return from that. And then along building my real estate network, I got a really close buddy of mine now, who's like a brother to me, who's a real estate developer. So real estate development and real estate investing are two different things. Investing is investing in already built properties. Development is building properties from the ground up. So this is a 65 plus unit mixed use apartment complex that will be breaking ground in 2025. But this was like pretty much very similar to a syndication type of real estate deal that I did, that is really for the long term, that I'm hoping to continually have some equity in over time and really just pass on to my children. So now, understanding the stages of real estate. You don't just buy a property and that's it. There are four stages of real estate and property ownership. So we have the acquisition phase, which is when you're looking to acquire the property, right? And you start at that phase by doing your market research. This is where you got to have a foundational knowledge and know which direction you're going to go into, understand what your strategy is and how you're going to utilize it, because now you got to understand why you're looking for a specific property. So understanding the market of the area that you're in or wherever you're going to be investing in, understanding the financial analysis of your property. So figuring out what your cash flow is going to be, how much you need to invest in this property, how much the property is going to be, which then moves us to actually selecting a property that meets your numbers, that meets your income and cash flow goals. And then you do this after selecting and knowing what you want to do. Then you actually have to do the due diligence by going through, getting your inspections, getting your appraisals, understanding how much it's going to cost to get you to the point of then getting to the stabilization phase, which is after we close on the property. And now we're doing any renovations and repairs. We're doing tenant placement, getting tenants placed into the property. We're managing the lease, so getting tenants leased out for each unit, and then understanding the cash flow management of, now you have rental income coming in. You also paying bills and expenses on the property. So that cash flow management that comes apart with that. Once you're stabilized, because it's going to take a while before you get stabilized, you're going to then go into the normal operations phase. So that's just managing the property, making sure you're taking care of this property that you own, making sure that the tenant is taking care of it, understanding the financial oversight. You know how much you're paying to get the lawn repaired, the lawn cut. You're saving and putting away reserves for in case anything happens or any major expenses. You're making sure that you're getting the property routinely maintained, and your filters are getting changed out. Your fire, I'm gonna call it a fire alarm. I can't think about it right now. But your fire alarm's got a battery; it's not just beeping. So making sure you're maintaining the property and then staying up on regulation compliance as far as what it means to, one, be a property owner. So if your taxes might go up next year, or understanding what it means to be a landlord, the things that you can and can't do to somebody living in your property, because people have rights, and you can't just say, "Hey, I want you gone," because you're getting on my nerves. So really understanding the legalities of what it is to be a landlord. Next, we get into the disposition phase. So the disposition phase is when we're looking to then sell the property. So understanding what market are we in, and in the market time. And is it a good time to sell? Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Is it a good time to sell this property? Will I be losing out any money if I decide to sell now? Understanding the actual valuation of the property. How much is your property worth? And then the market in order to actually sell it to somebody and make it be attractive to them. This also comes in with negotiations and sales that have to do with your realtors or your agents. And then what is your strategy after you get the money now? Now that you have this lump sum of money, what are you going to do next with that? That's not just something that we just start to spend, but there has to be a strategic reinvestment strategy for tax purposes, or are we going to then put it away into the market so that we're now earning on that money and it's not just sitting stagnant? So there are four different phases of property ownership, and this can be a a quick a quick flip, as some people say, or this can be a long term hold. In most cases, it's a long term hold, which you have to take into account for. That's why we do the tax planning. That's why you work with professionals and build up this team over the lifespan of your property ownership, so that you can be successful in each phase. Now, the types of real estate strategies. This is where I say having that foundational knowledge is important, because before you start to look at properties, you got to understand how you're planning to invest. So we have residential rental investing. That's long-term buy and hold property. You buy a property, you get a tenant in there. Hopefully, they stay in there for 30 years, and pay off the house. You have your vacation or your short-term rental, as we know, Airbnb, VRBO, Furnish Finder. It's a very high turnover rate because it's short term, typically 1 to 3 months, or sometimes it can be longer. But really, that 1 to 3 month time frame, you understand, because you're actually renting out people's houses or you're using Airbnb on your contract. So that's the short term rental side of it. Now we have house hacking, which is a strategy in which I use with my primary residence, but it's using your primary residence to then decrease your mortgage payment by renting out a room to people, renting out an area. So what I did when I started traveling as a travel nurse, I rented out my basement. I got it fixed up as far as furnishing it, and I started to rent it out to travel nurses that were coming in during the pandemic. This helped me decrease my expenses while I was gone. Instead of having double living expenses, my mortgage was then paid off, or pretty much majority of it. I only had to pay the last $200 because the basement was covering it. Another real estate investment strategy that I use to buy. You asked me, like, how do you get two properties at once? How much did you have? So with the BRRRR strategy, it's called buy, repair, refinance, rent, repeat. So you buy the property, and typically this strategy is, and I may be saying the acronym, I get it confused a lot, so I may be saying it wrong, but things might be switched around in the process. But with the burst strategy, what you're going to use is you're going to use like hard money or private money. And what I did, I used a hard money lender who paid 80% of the purchase value of the property, and I only paid 20%, but they also paid for 100% of the rehab budget. So after buying it, we rehabbed it up, got it in forced appreciation. I bought both properties, one for $80,000, another one for $60,000. But again, I only paid 20% of those, that 60 and that 80,000. The rest was paid by the hard money lender. And then I used 100% of my rehab budget, which you got to know your numbers in order to set a realistic rehab budget, because this is people's money that you're using, and they're also going to be running the numbers as well. They pay 100% of your rehab budget, which you then force appreciation by fixing up the property, renovating it, and then getting a tenant in it so that you can then refinance out of that private money lender, pay them that 80% and that 100% back, and now you're in a long-term mortgage with a bank with like a conventional loan. So that is a way of getting into real estate by putting in or having little money down and not having to put much of your money into it. We have real estate investment trusts, which is you have these companies and these groups uh, who buy like groups of investment properties, and you can send your money to them, invest through them, and then they will essentially kind of pay you a dividend like a stock, but it's actually from the rental income from these conglomerations of rental properties. You have house flipping. You buy a property that is in distress, that is has no value. You add the value to it. You flip it and you sell it to somebody who's trying to buy their forever home or buy their first home, which is a very risky. I really say it's risky if you don't have any mentorship or anybody who's experienced in it, because in most cases when you're starting something new in real estate, you're always going to take a loss, and there's always so much risk that come along with flipping properties, like underestimating your rehab or renovation budget, and then not selling in the time frame that you expect to, and you get really essentially get to holding the over cost of that property. We have wholesaling, which is working out deals with people. Let's say there's somebody who's trying to sell their house, but they're not really trying to use a realtor or put it on the market. They'll A wholesaler will get it under contract for a certain price point, and then they will go to someone like me, who's a real estate investor, and really transact the deal, sell the property to me that's on contract, and then you'll pay them pretty much a certain fee or a part of the deal. And then you have real estate syndications, which is also known as crowdfunding. So that's you putting your money and pooling your money with other people who will then purchase properties. They will then manage the properties, and you will get a percentage of the return that is in the total rental income that comes from that. Now I tell people to kind of real estate syndications are good, but you kind of want to be a little cautious of it, because if you don't have any real estate experience, these syndications have like $25,000 minimums to get in. Now, versus buying your first property, going through the ups and downs, getting rental income actively from that, syndications, you don't really start to get active income and don't really get a return on your money like you could with owning an individual property, and it takes a while as well. And then you're not able to really do the due diligence, because you don't know the people, the track record, or really have that trust set up with these people who are saying they're going to uh, do something with your money and get you a certain return. So there's a lot of risk that I like to take with that. I'm a type of person where I want my hands in everything. I want to know what's going on. And with these syndications, you're looked at as a limited partner and instead of a general partner. So meaning you aren't having any active management when it comes to this property. And now, after having explained all of that, and what it's going to look like as a real estate investor, those same limiting beliefs that we had initially, I want to give you guys a solution. So when it comes to time constraint, I have to work a full-time job. I don't feel like being a landlord. Then you can hire a property manager. There are property management agencies that will charge you 10% of your rental income, of your rent per unit, and then they'll handle everything that you have to, and pretty much they'll just pay you the difference in that 10% every month. So it's really super hands off, and that's where that kind of passive aspect gets into it. But like I said, if you don't know your numbers and you don't run them right, it's hard to really be able to positively cash flow, especially early on when using a property management agency. Now, the financial risk of losing your money. That's why we got to know how to do our research. We got to educate ourselves and be able to understand how to do due diligence before we invest our money into something. So I say consulting with a financial advisor to, one, make sure you have the financial support to even invest in real estate, because there may be other areas that you need to work on first before trying to make money off your money, because you still could be losing. So consulting with a financial advisor to making sure it's safe enough for you to invest, so that we're not unnecessarily putting your money at risk because you're trying to make a come up. When it comes to lack of experience, that's why education is so important. Educating yourself on the game of real estate. I get people all the time who are expecting to read an ebook or take a course and then thinking that they're ready. Let me tell you from my personal experience, I've read almost every real estate book I could possibly read, and I thought I was going to be able to use the book knowledge and apply it to real life. But as we know, nursing school is way different than being in the actual clinical setting. So that's why I say educating yourself, working with a partner at first, somebody who has experience, or getting a mentor, and seeking a professional who's already done it, who's in it, and can tell you the mistakes to avoid. That can help you really overcome that lack of experience and really accelerate your knowledge. When it comes to regulatory compliance, staying aware and informed to regulations, also seeking out legal advice. When you own real estate, listen, it's time to talk to lawyers. It's time to understand the laws that come with it so that you can protect yourself. When it comes to tenant management, as I said, there are property managers who will manage your tenants. There are tenant placement agencies who will place your tenant for you, who will do that entire application process, do the income verification, and find you good tenants so that you're not having to do the marketing, having to do the showings of the property, and that can be done for you. When it comes to property maintenance, making sure, this is where our financial foundation comes into play, making sure that we're budgeting for the maintenance and repairs. So people think that when you get in rental income, let's just say I'm getting $2,000 a month from one of my properties, I'm not getting that full $2,000. I may be getting $200, $300 from that, because I had to take into account maintenance, a percent for maintenance repairs, a percent for capital expenses. So like fixing the roof, fixing the plumbing system, these big repairs that are gonna happen at some point. Also taking out a percentage for vacancy, for if you don't have a tenant for 1 month, 2 months, you're able to cover that mortgage. And the whole goal of having cash reserves like this is so you're not having to go into your pocket. Also being able to schedule preventative repairs so that you're staying on top of your property. So making sure your filters are getting changed, making sure anything when it comes to your appliances, they're staying on top of that. And then you can outsource this work. You don't have to fix toilets yourself. You don't have to come in and change light bulbs yourself. You can outsource it and delegate it to contractors or handymen that are willing to do it for you. There's also that vacancy risk that we talk about. Now, that vacancy risk can be taken care of by having your financial reserves, preparing for for those vacancy. Every month, you're taking out 5% for, just in case this tenant decides to up and leave, and now your property has nobody standing there paying you rent. When it comes to geographical constraints, investing close to home is possible, even if it's just if you live in New York and you decide to invest in New Jersey, or you decide to invest in Ohio, somewhere that's not too far out of state, but trying to stay as close as home as possible. Me, I was lucky enough to be able to live in the same city for the last 30 years of my life. I know it like the back of my hand, so I'm able to use that to my advantage when it comes to investing into real estate here. Also, with hiring local property managers, you're going to have to build your team if you're going to be investing out of state. You're not going to be able to be there all the time. So you're really going to have to build a network and a trustworthy team of people whom can get the repairs. Once you buy the property, actually do the renovations, show you pictures. Now, this is possible. I have a friend who invests out of state, and his agent and his contractors are sending him videos and pictures all the time when things are having to get repaired. They're showing him receipts. But he took time to build that team, and that time is taken by actually, you got to go to the place. You can't just invest blindly. When it comes to capital constraints, there are creative ways to invest in real estate. Everything doesn't have to be conventional, 20% down. There are creative ways where you can use seller financing. So the person that you're buying the property from, the current owner, they essentially become the bank. You can get a lower down payment as well as interest rate, and they're just earning a percentage on their money. You can also, like I use private money, you can use hard money or the Burr method. There are different ways versus you just having to pay 20% of what the property is worth. There's also really with the legal liabilities, having adequate insurance company. You're going to have people who are professional professional tenants, and things break or things may happen at the property. But if you have insurance to protect you, you're then at the end of the day not having to go inside your own pockets and your own money. But also consulting with legal professionals, knowing what you can or can't do in certain situations. Market volatility, understanding it's a long-term investment. At the end of the day, the market is going to go up and down. The property value is going to go up and down. Everything isn't going to be ideal, but understanding that the money that you initially invested, you should be able to pull out 30, 40 years from now, or pay off the house and be able to, your family then be able to benefit from that rental income long term. Opportunity cost. Listen, doing a cost benefit analysis and comparing your investment options with what you have right now, the resources that you have right now, and seeing, is it really necessary to invest in real estate? Should I just put my money into the stock market? Should I just invest in a REIT until I can build up my capital and build up my financial foundation until I'm ready to put everything into real estate? When it comes to your personal preference, evaluating your goals and your risk tolerance. Like, don't just get into real estate because I'm telling you that that's the way that people build wealth. If you really don't have it in you and you understand what your risk tolerance is and what your goals are, and that's not a part of your goals, save yourself a headache, save yourself money by doing that, evaluating if it's really necessary and if it's really for you, because it's not for everybody. Understand, real estate is an investment, but it's also a lifestyle that will engulf you and it will make or break you. And then when it comes to aligning your investment strategies with your financial goals. So if your goal is to build a high cash flow portfolio, then okay, we're going to have to either do a mixture of short-term rental, long-term rental, or we're going to focus on long-term rental. That's making sure we're getting the most valuable properties and the most valuable income as possible from it. Now, understanding the stress and burnout that comes, the stress, burnout, and long term commitment that comes. Listen, we're going to have to delegate tasks just like we do as nurses. That's a skill that we have. But understanding you're not the professional at the end of the day. This is not what you do. What you do is make the money in order to invest in your properties. And then establishing work life boundaries to understand that, listen, on these days, I'm going to focus on real estate. I'm going to focus on properties. And these days is for only work. Now, myself, trust me, there have been days I've been at work trying to manage everything myself, and it's stressing me out work wise. I mean, it's stressing me out, outside of work, but also it then leaking into my interactions with my coworkers and interactions with patients, because I'm just stressed over a problem that is getting me from my rental, my rent and my tenants. And then really prioritizing self-care, understanding that the point that we invest into real estate is so that we can create additional income for ourselves, and actually at some point use that money to be sitting on the beach, not being at work, actually using that money to go take your family out, enjoy a movie night, enjoy a date, and not have to dip into your personal earned income. Now, when it comes to the long-term commitment, setting realistic goals and a timeline, I'm looking at 30 years from now. What are things going to look like? How much is it going to take to get this property paid off? What am I going to be planning? What am I planning on doing with it? I plan on using my rental income as retirement income on top of what I'm saving. So really creating those realistic goals and understanding that things never happen when you want them to. I thought that I was going to buy these two properties. I was going to be able to get them rented out and get them done in 3 to 6 months, and it actually took me 2 years. But I was being unrealistic in setting my expectations. And then always, 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 when you're investing in something, you need to have an exit strategy. So understanding at the end of the day, what is your plan to do with this property you're investing? Is it hold on to it long term? Is it sell it? Are you going to then do a 1031 exchange and use that money to then get a bigger property? So when we're coming in, when we're initially investing, we got to be thinking about how we're going to get out as well. And constantly regulating and reviewing your investment strategy, because long-term buy and hold might not be hot right, all the time. So you may need to get into something where, though, you're not just investing into a rental property. You may be investing into a commercial building, and then you can start to rent out to business owners, or then realizing, okay, I got enough income from real estate. I want to invest in a laundromat, and then really diversifying your money. And then at the end of the day, um, really knowing the purpose and your why for doing it all. Now, what are your next steps, right? After this, you came to this presentation, you're getting all this information, you're probably overwhelmed. What is the next step that you should do? It's really, first thing is create a personal balance sheet. So getting down all your financial statements, every paycheck that you're getting, all of your, all of your credit cards. I'm sorry, guys. I'm kind of in this brain fart right now. But your statements, your financial statements from your checking accounts, from your credit cards and your savings, making sure you're getting all your financial statements and you're laying them out in front of you so that you know where you're spending your money at, how much money you have coming in, how much money you have going out, and you're able to really know the money that you have available. We do this by gathering all of our financial information. Anything that has a number on there, that's what we need to have, being able to put in one place, so that if we need to go to and reference, we can then go to that one place and we're not digging from all around the place in order to figure out where the important documentation is. Now, setting goals and principles for the next 3 to 5 years. If we're not doing this travel nurse thing is not long term. There are career travelers who 20, 30 years they are they are travelers. But then you got to think about, you're starting a family. There's going to be a point where you want to settle down and really start to live your life in a set place and not continuing to live out of your suitcase in an apartment. So setting realistic goals when it comes to your the money that you're working for right now, and putting it so you can put yourself in a better position. And the last thing, working with a financial professional to create a plan. Now, you can set these goals and priorities, but you have to create a plan in how you're going to accomplish these goals. There's steps that you have to take along the way in order to get to each goal that you have set for each year. There's steps, there's procedures, there's so many things. Like I said, first starting off with your emergency fund, then focusing on and maxing out your retirement accounts, and then getting into these big investments. Like, so there's steps that it has to take, and if it takes you 2 years to invest into your first property, it's okay, because you securely did it and you actually plan to accomplish this goal so that you're not putting yourself at risk. Now, there are different types of financial professionals that you can work with. You have financial planners like myself, and all of these people can fall under the financial advisor umbrella. But when you sit down with a financial professional, it's asking them how are you paid, right? Because a lot of people will try to diagnose the problem, try to treat the problem without diagnosing what the actual issue is. And I always tell people that when working with a financial professional, you should ask them, how do you get paid? Now, financial planners, you have their fee only, there's fee based, and then there's people that work off a percentage of the assets that they manage. So if you have, let's say, $1 million in assets, then they are gonna. It's usually a standard 1% across the board. Advisors like myself, I charge a fixed fee to work with people for a specific time frame, and then when you have commission-based advisors or fee-based advisors, they charge an upfront fee along with a commission from any products that they may put you in, any insurance that they may sell you as well. You have insurance agents who are paid by commission, and they pretty much get a commission from the overall premium that you pay for the year. You have investment brokers who are your typical financial advisors that you work with. Oops, sorry, what is that? You have your typical your investment brokers who they invest your money into the stock market, but they're charging you for every transaction that they make, and they're getting a percentage of that transaction, as well as they're putting you into products that are bundled and that their company has put together and is kind of proprietary made to sell you. Um, and in most cases, when starting off, it's cheap in the upfront, but it ends up hitting you over the long run as far as the percentage of fees that they're charging you for each transaction. And when I say transaction, when you get money and you put it into your brokerage account, every time that they invest into an index fund, there's a transaction that comes along with that. And then you have accountants and CPAs, which generally charge you. They can charge you for bookkeeping. They can charge you a certain monthly rate. For tax planning, they can charge you a fixed fee, and then for doing your taxes each year, they also charge you a rate. Um, and lastly, when it comes to myself, my services, and how I work with people, I do financial planning, I do real estate planning, as well as investment management. And within those services are cash flow planning, debt management, insurance planning, retirement planning, investment planning, tax planning, employee benefit analysis, goal planning, and then acquisition planning for getting your first property, as well as helping you save for your kids' college savings and creating those accounts necessary for them. Now, when you leave here, like I said, I know this is a lot of information. I invite a lot of you, any one of you, if you're willing. I have a healthcare real estate community. It's called the Healthcare Hustle, where we meet on a bi-weekly basis or twice a month. To one, it's really an accountability group for people who are serious about getting into real estate, who are serious about creating this network of people where they can come to ask questions from, and really utilize their experience. I have a monthly meeting that we have, and really just getting to know each other, sharing our goals, sharing our aspirations, and then there's the second part of the month. We discuss with a active real estate investor, not a healthcare professional, but a real estate investor who has experience and is really able to really tell us their journey and how they got to the point they are. So this is a community that I'm building long term. I want this to become the next bigger pockets, or become the next. I don't know if you guys are familiar with EYL, but really a community where all healthcare professionals who are interested in investing in real estate, actively investing in real estate, can come together, share, motivate, and inspire each other, as well as connect and network. And then I have an ebook as well that is Building Wealth Beyond Medicine. Taking all this information I gave you, it will be a great start to then purchase this ebook, and then that will tell you how to get from the drawing board to the closing table when it comes to buying your first rental property, walking through you every step of the way. Any questions?
You guys can write them in the Q&A section. I had some on the pre-form, so as you guys are writing yours in, we can ask the ones we already have. Hold on one second. But yeah, just make sure if you want to write them in the chat, that's fine too. Wherever you write them, I'll find them. Somebody asked how many shifts you work a week.
How many shifts I work a week? So I only work about 4 shifts, really maybe 5. So I have my full time three 12s that I work, but then I also have a on-call job where I do critical care transport. But they're paying me like per call when I come out is about $400. So it might be a day where I can make $1,200. It might be a day where I make $0. But I'm also sitting at home waiting for them to call me as I'm, managing my business and my properties, but still having that availability.
Okay, so a little bit of overtime, but not like
Yeah,
anything.
not in the, not. I'm not giving the hospital no extra time.
Okay,
I'm yeah, because I'm not giving them any extra time outside of the standard 36. But having something on the side that I can also work that really works with my schedule.
perfect. How do you evaluate whether or not a property is worth buying? What amount of cash flow is good enough number to buy at?
So there are certain. It's really personal basis, depending on how much the actual mortgage is on the property. But I like to look at really on a conservative basis from $200 to $300 in net positive cash flow after all bills, reserve cash reserves are deposited. I kind of look for that $200 to $300 range, but there's also a 1% rule that you can use as well. So earning 1% of the total purchase price of the property on a monthly basis.
Nice. This is for starters, who have never invested. What's the one simple advice or piece of advice I could use to keep myself engaged and motivated when things seem like they hit the fan?
The biggest part of that is community. That's why I created my healthcare hustle community for real estate investors, because I remember those days where, I felt like I was in hellfire and I was in the thick of the storm. Like I'm sleeping on the couch every day, barely eating because of just not knowing what's next, and I didn't have anybody to go to really walk me through, like, hey, just understand it's going to be okay. And I did that with like Facebook communities, but also those people don't really know me. And sometimes you don't really comfortable being vulnerable to people, just randomly asking a question in a group. So I would say definitely building that community is important.
Perfect. Julie just asked, how do you work out rent to be charged for a property?
So what you want to look at is you got to look at the compared rents in the that are around in that neighborhood. So if it's a high neighborhood where rents are $2,500 a month, you're able to kind of gauge what the property on the inside looks like. Um, from you can do this by going to Zillow. In Zillow, there are people that are trying to rent out properties, and they're taking pictures of it and they're showing you how much they're costing each month. You can actually do, pretty much comparable type of renovations and charge what you're seeing there.
Perfect. Do you feel like the real estate market is saturated?
No, no. So I never, once if you go to the grocery store, you walk down the bread aisle, it's 100 bread companies, right? But when shit hit the fan, it's no bread on the shelves. So that's kind of how it works. The oversaturation of real estate is really what weeds out the weak and weeds out the people who aren't willing to take the risk. But real estate has been time tested throughout and through over generations, and it's what people have really built wealth on. So there's never saturation because there's people dying every day, and there's people who properties are getting sold off, and it's really a constant cycle. It's just about when you get in and knowing what you're looking for when you're getting in.
Mm. I know that you alluded to this in the presentation, but someone did ask, can they make their home a part of a business to generate income and use as a tax write-off?
Now,
Um,
now, when it comes to taxes and actual tax strategies and planning, yes, it's possible. So like how the when I furnished my basement, the money that I used to furnish the basement, that can be looked at as business expenses for the property. But I would definitely consult a tax professional when doing that, because the tax laws and codes are constantly changing, and it's really not anything to play with, because you don't want to get audited, and you don't want to have to owe the government because of a strategy that you heard from someone who this is not what they do every day.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. No matter what it is, if it's taxes, talk
Oh
to a
yeah,
tax
you never
professional.
want to play with that. Never, never.
Julie asked, do you believe in pulling out equity from a free and clear property for renovation, or should the equity be left and used for purchase of another property?
So as it's this kind of the same question. So when you're pulling out the equity in a property, you should be doing that to purchase another property. You shouldn't just be pulling out equity in your house because you're essentially decreasing the value of the money that's in it. So when at some point you do decide to sell it, you're not just breaking even. So if you're going to pull equity out, which can be done through a cash out refinance, which can be done through a home equity line of credit, it should be strategically used to invest in your next property.
Awesome, awesome. If anybody else has any other questions, just jot them down really quickly. We do have a giveaway. We are going to be giving away one book, right? I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
one of Tyron's books. Do you have a question you want to ask him, or you just want me to randomly pick somebody?
Um. We got a spinning wheel, or
I know.
we can
I
we can
completely
ask
just
him a question. We can ask him a question.
yeah. I can pick somebody. If I don't have a question off the top of my head.
Um. Let's see. Let's see.
I feel like Julie, you have been pretty active with the
Yeah. Let's give it. Let's
questions.
give it to the one who asked the most
Yeah,
questions. Let's
let's
give it
do
to.
that.
Let's give it to the one because you get what you get out of this. You get as much as you put into this out of it.
I have your email, Julie, so I will email you so then we can get the ebook sent to you, okay? But I got your name and all of that, so we're good on that. Congratulations, Julie. You didn't even know, but you know.
Hey, when you put in the work, that's what I appreciate you, Julie, for just making this engaging, and showing that somebody's here.
Well, we appreciate you guys so much for coming today. If you have any other questions, we'll definitely. Oh, we do have one more question. George, I'm saving money to buy a property in the next 12 months. Do you think it's better to put the money saving in a high interest savings with a yield of 4% or in the market investing in certain ETFs?
So it will really be depending on your risk tolerance, right? So high yield savings, we know we're gonna get that 4%. It's not much, but our money is still earning money, and we know that we're not gonna lose the money. Now, when you put your money into the market, we understand that things go up and down every day. So, are you willing to risk, the money that you're working to and putting away to potentially lose some of that money along this 12-month time frame? As let's just, for example, an election year is coming up, and then the market just kind of goes up and down. COVID happened just randomly. Who knows what's next, and the market going up and down. So it's about your risk tolerance, because you could earn double that 4% potentially, but it's how much are you willing to risk this initial investment, because it's ultimately going to decide how long it takes for you to buy that next property.
Perfect. Anybody else have any questions before we wrap up? I think that's all the questions. If anybody else doesn't want to, that was a great last one, George. Thank you for that.
Yes, George, appreciate it, man.
But yeah, as I said, we are so super appreciative for you guys joining us today. We definitely have some more events coming up. We do have a mindfulness mental wellness one coming up in May for Mental Health Month. We have some Nurses Week virtual events, as well as if you're in the LA area, definitely come out to our live event. But still continue to stay tuned. We will have a feedback survey at the end of this that'll be emailed to you. Please let us know, if you have other suggestions on things you want to hear, other speakers you want to, things you want to them to talk about, or just anything you guys have on your mind on how best we can support you all. We are here, and we are appreciative. So we just want to hope you have a wonderful, wonderful night. And thank you, Tyron, for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate everybody that's come out. I appreciate being here. You guys can find me on Instagram at the Urban Nurse. If you have any additional questions, like I said, I have a free checklist as well as really testing, understanding what your readiness is and what should be. The things that we talked about in here. I have my ebook in the community. You guys can join as a resource. But reach out to me. I'm always giving out free game and engaging with people via Instagram.
And I will also be linking all his handles and his information in the wrap up email in the next few days. We'll get the recording sent out and the slides and all of that in the next few days. Don't worry, it's coming. I know some people were late or had to hop on, or hop off. So definitely that will be coming to you guys by the end of the week. So look out for that. And thank you again. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.